Madara Uchiha is one of the most beloved characters in all of anime. From the legendary lore that continuously built up, to the all-time great introduction he was given, Madara Uchiha is easily one of the greatest anime characters of all time. However, what makes Madara such a great character isn't simply just how powerful he is, or how aesthetically impressive his performance in battles are, but also the very understandable and well thought out ideology that he represents. Throughout the iconic story of Naruto, we are gradually introduced to the sort of cyclical nature that is present within the shinobi world. More specifically, we are gradually introduced to the duality and dichotomy of war and peace, also commonly called the cycle of love and hate. Madara Uchiha became blatantly aware of this reality with the brutal wars he endured and witnessed from a young age, which would shape his character and ideology in the process. He would become more cold-hearted and pessimistic as he grew into a top entity in the shinobi world, with Hashirama Senju's friendship slowing down this process with his antithetical, light-hearted, optimistic nature. However, once that deterrent and friendship faded, with Madara becoming ostracized from Konoha, he would come to an epiphany and devise a plan known as the Eye of the Moon plan. What this plan entailed of is executing the global scale genjutsu known as the Infinite Tsukuyomi that would essentially put all shinobi in an indefinite dreamlike state where they live out their fantasies, essentially ending the indefinite cycle of love and hate. Hence, hardened by war and death, Madara Uchiha concluded that this plan would be the only way to systematically end this cycle. So would ending that cycle be enough to claim Madara was right? Well, trying to answer that question will lead to an inevitable moral dilemma. While Madara with his plan would end the cycle of love and hate, he would also eliminate the free will of all shinobi on Earth in the process. The dilemma arises when you soon realize you undoubtedly begin to ethically consider if the ends justify the means. Does the elimination of war justify the removal of free will? Well, due to this being such a moral dilemma, in today's video, I will give the moral argument for both sides of the coin, and you let me know in the comments whether he was right or not. And as always, if you enjoy, please make sure to hit that sub button if you're new, and hit that like button, as that truly helps the channel grow and prosper. And once again, thank you for all your support. So I'll start with the agreeing side first. The argument for Madara's ideology is that shinobi, like human beings, have an imperfect nature, resulting in them possessing volatile and fluctuating emotions, which include hatred and deep levels of tribalism. We see this clearly on display with the eternal clan disputes between the Senju and the Uchiha, an aspect of the shinobi world Madara Uchiha would come to know very well from a young age. These problematic biological intrinsic properties cannot be extinguished entirely in any real organic way, as shinobi are biologically hardwired to feel these emotions for survival and success, meaning the only real way to eliminate this issue is to remove freedom of choice and the ability to act freely entirely. This is essentially the for your own good argument, quote unquote. Madara was aware that while law and order could mitigate shinobi's imperfect nature and limit harm amongst them, it could never truly eliminate the pain and futility in the shinobi world, as he famously iterates to Obito. He observed that the single greatest contributor to the cycle of love and hate of shinobi were shinobi, and that they are their own greatest enemy, which led him to conclude that with all his power and talent, he alone had to devise a way to shield lost shinobi from their own imperfection and self-destruction. Hence, the Eye of the Moon plan. What can be definitively said is that Madara had good intentions to a certain point. His remorse for the inevitable pain and futility shinobi have had to endure, which he witnessed, led to him planning to implement what he deemed as the solution. The theoretical outcome of his plan is being in a dreamlike state where you indefinitely live out your fantasy, putting you in an eternal state of bliss. No pain, no futility, just peace and happiness. This qualifies as a morally righteous act, as both the intention and outcome can be considered as good, with good being a word to represent a moral positive to the vast majority of modern Western civilization. Hence, with this rationalization, Madara is right. Now for the opposing and antithetical stance to Madara's ideology. The argument against Madara's ideology is that every shinobi is intrinsically valuable and should be given the right to choose their own path. That's what ensures their individuality and the right to act on their own free will. Their will should not be limited or completely fractured, as that goes against the natural order of reality, with that order being the only aspect that should determine a shinobi's life and path. Madara develops a god complex, with him being so superior to everyone in the shinobi world, and he also develops a sense of elitism, which leads him to conclude that he alone should determine the fate of the entire shinobi world and take away shinobi's right to choose. He is willing to achieve his goals by essentially any means necessary, from emotionally manipulating a child to slaughtering tens of thousands of shinobi. This cannot be deemed as virtuous or righteous, but rather selfish and harsh. Hence, not only was Madara willing to kill for his cause, but also willing to forcibly remove the free will of every single shinobi on Earth. On top of that, true peace isn't truly achieved, as what Madara is planning is a real-life equivalent of putting all of humanity in an eternal coma against their will. Peace isn't truly achieved, but rather only a pseudo-extinction of shinobi takes place. Essentially, instead of fixing the system is simply being removed entirely. Instead of inspiring change and peace among shinobi like Hashirama was attempting to do, Madara was attempting to tie the hands of the shinobi world so that it would no longer progress at all. Hence, logically, it isn't really a solution to the harsh cyclical nature of the shinobi world, but rather only a method to avoid truly dealing with it. Forcefully removing the entire shinobi world's free will against its will is morally unjust and really doesn't bring peace at all, but rather global desolation. And there it is, the moral dilemma that comes to fruition when analyzing Madara's ideology. So what comes first morally speaking? Free will or guaranteed peace? What is a higher moral righteous position within your own moral compass? Morality is unlike the vast majority of fields of intellectual discussion, as a moral judgment isn't a tangible thing that can be confirmed objectively as right or wrong. One man's evil can be another man's righteousness, and while the modern Western world has certain universally presupposed moral judgments, that still doesn't negate the division that some of the most controversial topics in today's world cause, from politics to religion. Anyways, I hope you folks enjoyed the video, and of course, let me know in the comments whether you think Madara was right or not. Stay classy.